dominated by oligarchs, and without an
That's
economic
good.
Wow, that is a
crash
very
in the
nice one.
1990s.
Hi
Hi guys,
guys.
and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be checking out why Poland is quietly becoming Europe's next
Superpower.
superpower. And this is the first time reaction. Please, if you're new here, like, subscribe, share, and watch to the end. And let's get right into this video, guys.
This is the classic stereotype of Poland. A grey, poor, post-communist country with nothing to offer but cheap, unqualified labor. But this stereotype is no longer true, and Poland of today looks more like this. In the past 30 years,
This
Poland
was
went
so.
through an
Breathtaking.
incredible
This was so.
transformation, growing more than any other economy in Europe, and faster than Asian tigers like Singapore, South Korea, or Taiwan. Today,
You for
Poland is
real?
emerging as a major technological hub. The Polish economy might overtake the UK by 2030, and after
Wow.
years of suffering from a massive brain drain, highly skilled Poles are now coming back home. And it goes way
Oh,
beyond the economy.
this
As
one's
Poland
right.
Oh.
Like, I'm not actually against people leaving the country, but like people have the reason for leaving the country. But when the people that are supposed to like actually take the country to the next level all leave the country, so who's going to take the country to the next level?
That's
Let me
true.
give you an example, right? Like my country right now, the best of the best, they keep flying out. They don't stay here. So who's going to bring
That change.
that change? Who's
The
going to bring
development that we
that
want.
groundbreaking business idea? It's not there to make that idea here. They're going to do it in a foreign country, and the whole credit will go to that country. They keep paying taxes in that country. So I like when you say the people that are coming back home to change the
So
country.
now in the case of Poland, it's not a reverse.
Yeah, it's a reverse.
They were once going out,
Now
but
they're
now
not
they are coming back home
I
with
think they're
the
seeing
innovations
actually it
and
still boils down
everything.
to the government. If government
Yes.
creates opportunities, people
Opportunity,
won't go
people
out.
come.
Because at the end of the day, people with ideas keep looking for opportunities to
Opportunities. That's true.
be
People with
productive.
ideas always look for where to sell their ideas. A
Yeah.
government that will be acceptable
So if my
to
government will not buy my
approve
idea,
of what
I
they
will go
want
to the
to
next
do.
country that was going to buy my idea.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that the government is giving room for ideas to grow, and you see how it's translating in the real life economy.
Yes, yeah.
Poland is building one of the most powerful militaries in Europe, and quickly becoming one of the most influential European countries. As all of these changes continue to pick up pace, it's getting impossible to ignore Poland's growing importance. But there is still one thing that could destroy the entire Polish miracle. A threat not from the outside, but from within. So how did
that?
Poland manage to become Europe's biggest success story? Why is it doing so much better than everyone else? And what is the challenge threatening to end everything that it has achieved? This is the rise of Poland.
I love that word. The rise of Poland.
But to understand why Poland's transformation is such a big deal, we need to understand where it started from. In the 20th century, after becoming the first country to be invaded by Nazi Germany and losing 20% of its population in World War II, Poland became part of the Eastern Bloc, as one of the Soviet-controlled satellite states. Like in the rest of the Eastern Bloc, the 40 years of communism were times of deep economic isolation, stagnation, and overall hopelessness. Poland had to import the Soviet system of centrally planned economy, where state owned almost everything. Private businesses were mostly non-existent, and since they were basically a Soviet colony, the Polish economy was subservient to interests of the Soviet Union, and forced to make, buy, and sell whatever Moscow wanted it to, whether it made economic sense or not. As a result, the centrally planned economy was deeply dysfunctional and mismanaged, crippled by constant shortages of basic goods and lack of resources. When the communist regimes of Eastern Europe finally fell in 1989 and Poland became free and independent, it emerged from behind the Iron Curtain as one of the poorest countries in Europe, with highly dysfunctional infrastructure and public
the
services,
poorest.
and with basically no experience with capitalism and participating in a global economy. The average salary was 10 times lower than in Germany, and the country was struggling with hyperinflation. In other words, it wasn't a country you would bet on to become a major success. But skip 30 years ahead into the future, and that's exactly what happened. So, how did Poland do it? From
How?
1992, Poland managed to grow consecutively for almost 3 decades, achieving the longest period of growth in modern European history. Now, not many countries are able to do that, and the reason is that usually when they find a successful strategy, they tend to stick to it long after it stops working. But Poland, so far, managed to find a different growth strategy for
Oh,
each of the 3 decades, which allowed it to grow so fast for so long. Starting in the early 1990s, its main challenge, like in every other post-communist country, was how to transition from a centralized, state-owned economy to a capitalist one. In most countries, these transitional reforms were in one way or another quite problematic. Either they took too long or they became pretty corrupt, and much of the state wealth was transferred into hands of a few wealthy oligarchs who got rich because of their political connections. Poland, on the other hand, managed this transition arguably better than others. It transitioned to capitalism quickly, but privatized most of the state-owned companies slowly, and a few years later than most of its neighbors, after the chaos calmed down, and after it became a little bit harder to steal everything. Thanks to that, it became pretty much the only post-communist country without an economy dominated by oligarchs, and without an
that's
economic
good.
Wow, that is a
crash
very
in the
nice one.
1990s. But despite the good start in the early 2000s, this wasn't enough anymore in order to grow, and so the next phase was about globalization. In 2004, Poland joined the European Union and the open European market with a free movement of goods and services. Without any barriers between Poland and the rest of Europe, it made sense for Western European companies to move their manufacturing over to Poland, where they had a large and a very cheap pool of workers at their disposal. And while these companies kept most of the profit, Poland got enough out of it to keep
Yeah,
growing at a
actually.
pretty fast pace. And joining the EU brought another major benefit, since one of its key principles is redistribution of money from wealthier member states to the less developed ones, in order to balance the wealth disparity across the Union. After joining, the Eastern European states started to receive a lot of money, and Poland managed to use them to build and improve everything from roads to universities. And
So
again,
that is where having a good leader comes
Comes
in.
in
You see, when the money comes, they didn't just somebody did not stack the money and go and hide it somewhere,
somewhere.
keeping it for generations and generations that they don't even know if they are going to be born. Instead, they use it in developing the
The
country,
country. To
like
make the generation that's going to come comfortable.
comfortable. This
That's what a good leader should
in
do.
a lot more efficient way than in many other Eastern European countries. But that can still only take you as far, and many countries following a similar trajectory eventually fall into the so-called middle income trap. If your economy is based on providing cheap labor for foreign companies, you can only grow to a certain level. And if you can't offer anything else apart from that, and you don't have any major companies of your own, you're stuck. But
Yeah,
so
true.
far, Poland seems to be avoiding that. 15 years ago, foreign companies were coming in to hire low-skilled and low-paid workers for menial labor. But today, they're coming because Poland has one of the largest pools of engineering talent in Europe. And instead of warehouses and basic factories, companies like Google are opening research and development hubs. Now,
Wow.
that said, Poland is still relatively poor, at least compared with most of Western Europe. But the growth so far has been impressive and unusually inclusive. Average wages in the country massively increased, while inequality remained low. And so it's not a growth that would only exist on paper, or only help select few, but it actually trickled down to the rest of the society. And there's one more area outside of economic growth where Poland has been getting a lot of attention lately, and that's its unprecedented military buildup. Historically, Poland has some good reasons to be a little paranoid. Stuck between Germany and Russia, it
yeah.
has been invaded, partitioned, colonized, and stripped of its independence time and time again. And even though today it's in NATO, this historical memory is still there. And while most European countries were taking their peace dividends, Poland has kept military funding at one of the highest levels in NATO. And after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it went into an overdrive. It announced that in just a few years, it will increase its military spending to 5% of its
Wow.
GDP, higher than
That's
any
like the
other
US.
NATO member,
Yes.
double the size of its armed forces to 300,000, and buy thousands of tanks, fighter jets, and other military equipment. And before the end of the decade, Poland plans to have the most powerful ground forces in Europe, in what would be one of the most ambitious military buildups in modern
They
European
should.
history. Now, that being
The
said,
issue
what
won't
Poland
repeat
has achieved
itself.
so far is impressive, and what it plans to achieve even more so. But it's yet to be seen if all that will actually happen.
It
Despite
will.
its successes, there are some significant risks that could kill the entire Polish miracle, and not everyone is so bullish on Poland's future. For a long time, demography has been considered the #1 threat, as around 500,000 people have left the country in the last 30 years. But now it looks like Poland managed to reverse this trend. In recent years, it has seen a reverse brain drain, as Poles and people with Polish heritage living abroad have started coming back to the country. And since the country took in over 1.5 million Ukrainian refugees, the demographic trends are looking much better. And so there are really two major risks. First, while the growth has been impressive, Poland has not actually avoided the middle income trap completely. So far, it's still massively reliant on foreign investments, and although tech centers are being opened in Warsaw, they are set up by foreign companies rather than by Polish ones. And while that brings jobs and growth, once again, there is a limit to how high you can grow, since most of the profits will always end up leaving the country in the end. In order to break into the big leagues, you need your own domestic giants in
Yeah.
sectors with high added value. And Poland doesn't have that, or at least not yet. But the far bigger risk is of a completely different nature, and it concerns a part of the Polish story that we haven't touched on yet. The thing is that Poland is a deeply divided country, so much that we can almost talk about two different Polands. One liberal and progressive, and the other deeply conservative and religious. Like in the US, the two Polands are finding it increasingly difficult to coexist together, and surveys show that both sides are highly suspicious of each other, intolerant to opposing views, and increasingly refusing to compromise. And for years, the current conservative government has been criticized by the liberal opposition for supposedly bending the rules in order to stay in power, and it has had a growing beef with the European Union that's threatening to cut Poland off from EU funds as a punishment for not upholding the rule of law. And the thing is that whatever side you cheer for, the end result is bad for both, and
Actually.
for Poland in general. The country needs both parts of the population to coexist and work together, and it needs the EU if it wants to be truly successful. And if it doesn't manage to do that, the Polish miracle will be over soon, before it has really started.
I would like to know the part of the standing point of the liberals and then that of the conservatives.
Actually.
I know what they are dragging for.
For the aim.
Yeah, their aim.
But
and-
there's nothing that can tear down a country more than itself.
yeah.
Because once a country stick together and start working heads on, that's why you think the USA is so great. Because they're like, yeah, you barely see USA traveling abroad to live there. They're either going on vacation, but returning back to their
to their
homeland.
country, yeah.
And I won't say they're 100% together, but to some extent,
To a
they
large
are
extent, they
together.
are more patriotic to their country
True.
compared to
Yeah.
some
And-
countries.
Being divided won't take you forward, but take you backward. Because by the time everybody starts moving their own, like separation,
Separation, moving out,
Yes.
not.
you can't beat a full team that works together, but you can beat a team that does not work together because at that moment they're separate.
Yeah.
Same thing goes to your family. It's a family that is separated at heart.
Mm,
You can easily come inside and cause an issue
Yeah.
than the ones that actually stick together. So the better they stick together, the better for all of them, the same growth. Because even if that happens, they're still in that umbrella Poland.
But
It
I would
happens to
I would
all.
still want to check out the point of the liberals and
Actually,
the point
yeah.
of the conservative
Conservative.
and get to know what their different views
Yeah,
about
and what
how
is
to
bringing
run
the
the country
separation.
and what is bringing.
Actually, this is the first time I'm really surprised at this because I used to think they're all one.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. And actually, it's Poland that have done a great thing coming from where they started off.
Oh,
That is what one of the things that piqued my interest. The way their resilience, the way they keep fighting and keep pushing forward. Like it's so hard to see people move that fast and determination. So
yeah, in short
I'm really
a period
impressed.
of
Like
time.
we all they've been through, they keep moving and changing strategy. And I feel like just give you said 2030.
Yeah,
So
2030.
I'm feeling by 2030, actually, you will get to your promised land.
5 years from now.
Yeah, because the way they keep moving forward, and yeah, everybody is picked, like they've picked everybody in interest. Like the whole world
Yeah,
right
the
now
whole
is
world,
watching.
yeah, there was a time that everybody was talking about Poland,
Like
Poland,
the whole
Poland,
world
and
is
that's a
watching.
good thing.
Yeah, then that means you're doing the right thing because like
Yeah.
you're showing like progression, like you're moving forward. And yeah, please tell us the view, like what's causing the separation between the liberal and the conservative
Yes.
in the comment section. But I'll still go and dive into it and do my own research. Thanks for watching with us. Please like, subscribe, share, and I hope to see you on my next video. Stay safe and bye for now,
Bye.
guys.